When an elite fighter plants their foot to execute a sudden pivot, the human knee absorbs immense torque. It is in this exact fraction of a second that careers are derailed without a single opponent landing a blow. Athletes possessing massive sagittal plane strength from heavy bilateral squats and deadlifts still collapse from non-contact tears during routine scrambles. Raw power built in a single plane fails to protect the joint in the multiplanar environment of the cage. These failures occur when sudden multiplanar force vectors overwhelm the nervous system's ability to coordinate stability across multiple axes. The mechanism of injury is a perturbation event. This is the moment the body reacts instantly under heavy load, causing planned movement to become reactive, uncontrolled, and asymmetric. Traditional barbell training occurs in stable, predictable environments. It lacks the sudden, multi-directional stress required to train the precise neuromuscular control needed to survive unpredictable movement. Neuromuscular control degrades sharply under fatigue. This creates a biological bottleneck. Underlying systemic fatigue artificially lowers an athlete's threshold for mechanical failure as the match progresses. True athletic longevity requires managing the biological baseline of fatigue while mechanically training joint stability. The ArC shielding system addresses this dual requirement. Created by Ron Henson, it bridges daily biometric tracking with a multiplanar mechanical protocol. Safe loading of complex mechanical patterns depends on first identifying and neutralizing the internal biological stressors draining autonomic reserves. Chronic, low-grade gastrointestinal inflammation acts as a silent stressor. It forces the immune system to siphon energy that should be used for physical recovery. This inflammation often stems from unidentified nutritional triggers. Even clean diets can contain individual triggers like histamine, FODMAPs, or ragweed cross-reactivity found in melons and bananas. This infographic shows internal degradation over a career. In the mid-20s column, healthy intestinal villi efficiently absorb nutrients to fuel performance. By age 30 and 40, chronic inflammation blunts the villi and triggers leaky gut, reducing the amino acids needed for tissue repair. This gastrointestinal decline forces the autonomic nervous system into a state of chronic sympathetic stress, locking the body in a persistent fight-or-flight response. Practitioners track this state by monitoring drops in heart rate variability and elevated resting heart rates. These metrics provide early warning signs of rising systemic fatigue. A drop in the fatigue threshold delays motor control. A millisecond lag in nervous system response during a pivot leaves the knee structurally unprotected. Securing the biological baseline allows for the mechanical intervention, training joints to survive complex force vectors. The ArC Shielding 360-degree clockwork pivot protocol provides a structured framework for this training. The protocol utilizes a closed-chain elliptical trainer. Specific resistance and ramp angles convert the machine into a controlled environment for high-force joint stabilization. This diagram maps the clockwork system, using specific foot positions along 9, 12, and 3 o'clock axes to guide multiplanar training. Offset positioning requires balanced contraction between the medial structures, like the VMO, and the lateral structures, like the vastus lateralis. This muscular balance keeps the patella centered in the femoral groove. It ensures smooth tracking even as metabolic demand and muscle fatigue increase. Athletes can train complex knee tracking mechanics repeatedly under fatigue without the abrasive impact damage of field-based drills. The protocol uses precise timing. At each clock position, the athlete performs 20 seconds of high-resistance forward pedaling, followed immediately by 20 seconds of reverse pedaling. Session A targets the lateral arc. The athlete progresses their foot placement from the 12 o'clock position out to 3 o'clock. This outward progression trains the neuromuscular system to stabilize the joint in extreme outer range, lateral positions. Session B shifts focus to the medial arc, progressing from 9 o'clock back to 12 o'clock. Medial loading is a dangerous vector. Extreme medial force induces sudden internal rotation and dynamic valgus, often leading to ACL failure during a pivot. Session B hardens the joint. The elliptical forces the musculature to continuously stabilize and push back against inward collapse. Alternating lateral and medial arcs stress test the knee across its entire rotational vulnerability profile in a safe loop. Reverse pedaling is the most critical phase of the interval. Driving backward against maximum resistance requires immense output from the posterior chain. This motion requires prolonged eccentric contraction of the hamstrings and glutes. This contraction creates a strong posterior pull on the tibia, preventing the bone from sliding forward beneath the femur. This pull functionally load shares the stress placed on the anterior cruciate ligament. Drilling this Fryer pattern trains the neuromuscular system to protect the ACL during real-world decelerations. Managing elite athlete longevity requires a dashboard that unifies mechanical protocols with biological baselines. Tracking daily heart rate variability is necessary to confirm the autonomic system is recovering from mechanical loads. The system uses the ArC rule of 10 to measure adaptation. This involves attempting a static hold at peak contraction on the final repetition of a set. A sustained 10-second hold forces vasoexpansion, engorging the tissue with nutrient-rich blood flow. Holding maximum contraction signals muscular failure to the central nervous system, driving structural adaptation. Building true resilience requires the neuromuscular system to manage extreme vectors under deep, measurable metabolic fatigue. This framework emerged from 40 years of applied movement training and longitudinal biometric tracking. The physiological demands of the protocol were validated under the continuous monitoring of a subcutaneous implantable defibrillator, ensuring autonomic loads were precisely measured. Joint resilience cannot be manufactured in stable weight room environments. Strength without multiplanar stability remains a liability in sports. The systems approach requires managing internal biological inflammation while exposing the joint to multiplanar perturbations. Preventing catastrophic non-contact injuries in combat sports requires the active management of chaos. Athletic longevity is a function of a neuromuscular system trained to stabilize the joint precisely when perfect movement fails.